Yo, guys, what's up? Young boy Shaq and Cut. You know what time it is. And listen, today I got something very, very interesting, or exciting for me at least. I don't know if you guys, I really like the tier list or the tier zoo animal list, but I generally enjoy it. So I'm going to continue to post it. Now, right now, I do know that the Uncle Roger video did well. At least I don't know if it is going to continue doing well. So I just dropped a video, so make sure y'all go, check my latest videos out. By the time this drops, there should be 3 videos in total. This one, a video about consciousness, and another one about Uncle Roger with Gordon Ramsay. So y'all go hit that up, okay? And while y'all are about to do that, support your boy. Why don't you guys just scroll down, hit that like button. You know what I'm saying? And while you're there, you might as well just hit the sub button, because, you guys fuck with me and all that. I guess. And then, I guess, while you're there, just leave down in the comments down below what you think about the video that we're about to put. Like I said before, it is a snake tier list, right? So put down what you guys think is going to be like the S tier. Or like, after the video is done, put down what's your biggest surprise. And how you would kind of like rearrange it if you disagree with it. There's some crazy snakes out there. There's some that have the fucking, I don't even know what it's called, bro. But it's like kind of like, y'all know what I'm talking about. They have that shit that kind of like flares out, right? And I remember reading something where there's a snake that spews out poison up to like 6 or like 12 feet or some shit. I don't even remember, but it's something crazy, And then obviously it's like the python, king cobra. I don't know, bro. The black mamba. We're gonna see though. Let's see. Damn. Sit move. I love this video so much, bro.
Snakes are one of the most feared classes in the game, with a number of powerful builds and a vast array of uniquely lethal abilities.
Yeah, I see.
However,
that.
Some of these strategies have clearly been more successful than others. So in this video, which was sponsored by Curiosity Stream, we'll be going over the snake tier list to see which builds rank highest. But before we get into looking at specific snake builds, let's do an overview of the basic attributes and special abilities the snake faction has access to.
Right.
As well as a quick rundown of the history of the snake faction.
Talk to me.
So, snakes are one of the newer factions in the game, joining the game's roster during the latter part of the Mesozoic expansion. They began as a niche offshoot of the lizard faction that was specifically adapted to burrowing gameplay. And in order to best min-max for the most efficient burrowing, this player base eventually opted to completely drop the legs attribute. This ended up being a far more successful gambit than anyone could have anticipated, as it not only granted these lizards better burrowing ability, but also opened up a bunch of other strategies to them.
Right, like what?
While the snake build first hit the scene during a metagame dominated by dinosaurs, they didn't become a huge threat in the meta until after the main dinosaur powerhouses were banned in the KT balance patch. During this chaotic post-ban wave meta, snake players experimented with some crazy builds, including the giant Titanoboa build.
Damn.
But while Titanoboa's giant size granted it short-term success, I think the strategies that the snake player base went on to specialize in are even more effective. Fast forward to today's meta, and snakes are one of the most successful predator factions in the game, owing this success to a handful of powerful, unique abilities. The most obvious of these is slithering, the snake's unique mobility option that it gained in exchange for losing its legs. At first glance, this might seem extremely limiting, as snakes cannot jump and move more slowly than they would if they could run. And while those are significant limitations, the ability to slither does open up a lot of other options to snake mains. Rather than jumping over barriers, snakes can oftentimes find a way to slither through them. This gives snakes access to a lot of areas of the map that are normally much more difficult to access, and means things like dens, nests, and other player-constructed bases are often less effective at keeping snake players out, which makes them one of the best classes at spawn killing. Slithering also allows a comparatively large build to remain very close to the ground and benefit from the stealth bonus of even the shortest grass and foliage. Despite not having claws, snakes make for highly effective climbers, making it very difficult to ever truly get out of reach of a snake. Still, as a rushdown option, slithering tends to be too slow to reliably
that nigga
catch up to
getting-
other players. So while snakes may not have the ability to chase you down, they've spec'd their movement kit to ensure that nowhere is ever truly safe from them, and if you let your guard down, they'll be poised to capitalize on that. A snake's basic strike is a little on the weak side for such a dangerous predator. Their bites can't deal that much damage on their own and are easily blocked by armor. It's for this reason that snakes tend to spec into various venom effects to infuse their bites with. Snake venom can have a variety of status effects, which we'll get into more.
Nah, I see what snake venom does, bro.
In general,
that shit's scary,
venom
bro. That
greatly
shit, like,
increases the damage potential a
your
snake
blood
can deal with its
clots
bite.
so quick.
Without
It's
this,
so
many
quick,
snakes would
bro.
have no means of defense and would be completely helpless when caught out in the open. Instead, snakes are one of the most feared classes in the game. But which snakes should be feared the most? For that, let's get into the tier list.
Talk to me.
So, the lower tiers on this list contain members of the
Garden
snake
snake.
faction known as colubrids. This is the largest group of snakes and contains almost every snake build in the game, except for the ones you're actually afraid of. Starting at the very bottom of this group, we have the garter snake, one of the weakest snake builds in the game. Data miners are actually unsure whether or not this build is venomous, but if it is, it's some of the weakest venom in the game. And with no other offensive abilities, the garter snake essentially only has favorable matchups against things far smaller than it, like frogs and mice. Because they're so vulnerable, garter snake players love to attack aquatic targets like tadpoles and small fish. But they have no actual abilities that synergize with this playstyle, nor is it a particularly good swimmer, and therefore takes on considerable risk when they venture into the water. Garter snakes are also caught in an endless loop of wasting a ton of evolution points, evolving extreme toxin resistance to the poison of a specific newt build.
Damn.
This isn't very efficient, but I guess the garter snake needs to preserve its few favorable matchups. Next in F tier we have the racer snake. This is a snake build that put an above average number of evolution points into mobility, making it one of the fastest snake builds in the game. That's not really saying a lot given that snakes tend to have pretty poor movement speed, but credit where credit is due, this does give them a much better chance of dashing into cover when under attack. Unfortunately, as with a lot of mobility-centric builds, this alone isn't enough to make them competitively viable. In fact, even with their above-average slithering speed, they're usually still too slow to chase down many of their preferred attack targets. They're also worse climbers than most snakes, making them one of the few snakes that can be countered by simply climbing out of reach. In almost all cases, a snake's worst matchup is against birds, and unfortunately for the racer snake, speed usually isn't much use against a surprise aerial attack. Their lack of practical applications for their signature abilities plants them firmly in F tier for me.
Vine snake?
Next on the tier list we have the vine snake. Now, there are many highly effective arboreal snake builds, and all things considered, the vine snake isn't terrible. It's got great stealth and is an excellent climber. But I mean, just look at this thing. With the lowest HP and defensive stats of any snake, this build folds to absolutely any attack. Vine snakes entrust their survival to their above average stealth stat, but if that fails and the vine snake is discovered, they resort to intimidation. Their intimidation tactic consists of sticking out their brightly colored tongue as a warning. Much like with the blue-tongued skink, I don't consider this to be a particularly effective defensive display, especially when this warning is backed by some of the weakest venom in the snake faction. Definitely not F tier due to its decent camouflage, but with nothing else going for it, it's stuck in D tier.
Tiger keelback.
Next in D tier we have the tiger keelback. This snake build breaks the mold when it comes to toxic strategies in snakes, as rather than dumping all of its evolution points into venom, the keelback also allocates some of its resources into becoming poisonous, meaning that they can inflict the toxic status effect both when dealing damage and when taking damage.
Damn.
This extra defensive ability definitely raises the keelback's ranking compared to most colubrid snakes. However, overall it's still not that great. Both their venom and their poison aren't all that potent, and it's possible that going all in on one of these strategies might have been the better play in the long run. Still, the keelback strategy does mitigate one of the colubrid faction's main weaknesses though, which is that they have a hard time using their venom defensively. Many colubrids, including the vine snake and keelback, are venomous. This is useful because, I mean, how else would a snake barely thicker than a piece of spaghetti deal any damage, right? The problem is, colubrids lack the efficient venom delivery abilities found in the more dangerous snake builds. Their fangs are located at the back of their mouths, and these fangs don't actually inject venom. The venom is just kind of part of their saliva, so to deal any damage with it, they need to really chew on their target for a good chunk of time. As you might expect, this makes individual strikes from most venomous colubrids quite harmless, as they don't contain much venom per hit, and they also can't really use
Burst
their
it out.
fangs
This is
unless
a
they
hug
get
that.
a really solid
Oh,
bite.
get off me.
So the Keelback's poison does sort of cover for this weakness, which is great, and for that it gets to the top of D tier.
Okay.
However, a defensive poison is by no means the only way to mitigate the drawbacks of having rear
But y'all ever
fangs.
feel like
As we'll see as we move out of the
your
low
knee
tier
about to
and
just
into
snap
mid-tier.
like that, bro? Like the wrong way. Oh my
At the
God,
bottom
bro.
of C tier, we have the Boomslang, the most venomous snake build from the Colibrid faction. This snake kind of just does everything the Vine Snake does, but better. It's an excellent climber and has great camouflage, but also packs a devastating bite with extremely overpowered venom for its tier in terms of potency.
Damn.
And while it does have rear fangs, they're significantly larger than most colibrids. But its best adaptation is that the Boomslang can open its mouth far wider than most snakes,
Damn.
allowing it to deliver a venom-infused bite in spite of the unfavorable location of its fangs. This allows the Boomslang to go toe-to-toe with high-tier builds like the Chameleon, as well as let it use its potent venom as a defensive threat rather than solely just a hunting tool.
Julian is going
Now,
crazy.
obviously, this is still far from ideal. Its venom is quite slow acting, making it not that useful when under attack. In my opinion, the Boomslang is the perfect example of a snake that really just needs one or two more buffs to be a high tier build, but in its current state, it just doesn't quite get there. At the top of C tier, we have our
King
last
Snake
member of
and
the
you're in
Colibrid
C
faction,
tier?
the King Snake. The King Snake is a large snake build with no venom-based abilities. Instead, this is the first Constrictor build on our list. Constriction is a type of grappling attack that, when properly executed, results in a guaranteed KO, even on extremely large targets. Its main drawback is that this attack strategy is highly vulnerable to disruption. A Constrictor player has to be able to survive all counterattacks from its target while attempting to restrain it. So with that said, you'd think
Trying to
it would be
attack
very
another
difficult to
snake?
use this technique against a venomous snake, right? Snakes are so flexible that it's very difficult to grapple them without giving them an easy opportunity to bite back. That's where the King Snake's second ability, Venom Resistance, comes in. The ability to
Ooh.
ignore all damage from a snake's venom makes the King Snake's matchup against other snakes horribly one-sided. Just for good measure, King Snakes have high enough accuracy on their attacks that they
Okay.
tend to go for the head, which negates a snake's counterattack potential even further. This is about where
Oh,
the King
eating another
Snake's
snake is
supremacy ends
crazy.
though, as the rest of its matchups are pretty standard for a snake, and with no venom of its own, it doesn't pose much of a threat to players it can't reliably immobilize in its coils. Luckily, there's a pretty simple change a Constrictor build can make in order to increase the effectiveness of its constriction: size. Boas and pythons are the poster children for this type of strategy, being the only snake builds that can be properly
they're in B
classified
tier?
as tanks. While technically these are two
makes
different
sense, makes
factions,
sense.
they are functionally extremely similar and both contain specific examples of highly effective tanky snakes. Although boas and pythons have no venom, their large teeth and incredibly high physical stats make them more than a match for just about any player that challenges them directly. With their thick scales and huge size, it's very difficult to defeat one of these in a 1v1 quickly. Their ability to tank a lot of hits during a fight means that even extremely powerful builds like the
Dang.
Tiger are in for quite an uphill battle if they choose to stand and fight. Well-statted builds with high defense
made a
and
mistake.
DPS, like the Crocodilian factions, are easily overcome with brute strength once a boa or python uses their piercing fangs
They
and
be eating
powerful quills
alligators?
to trap them in an infinite grab combo.
I'm not gonna lie, snakes got
Drawbacks
it,
to the
bro.
constriction
They got
strategy
it.
are vulnerability to third-party attacks and the immense cost of failed kills. While many constrictors have the size required to challenge other large builds, going after too powerful a target can expend a disproportionate amount of HP compared to other snakes. As large builds are often more conspicuous, the most successful constrictor players will make good use of the camouflage ability.
Alligator,
Out
bro,
of
that's
the
what I'm
boa
saying.
faction, the
Alligator is
most powerful
crazy.
build is without a doubt the Anaconda. These are among the heaviest of any snake and by far the tankiest, with an HP stat that renders most physical attacks almost negligible. While Anacondas are significantly less
Anaconda
viable
at
on
B tier is
land due to their
crazy.
greatly reduced speed on terrestrial maps, their mobility, stealth, and camouflage bonuses in the aquatic meta make them nearly unbeatable in that biome. Anacondas are capable of serious speed when their buoyancy abilities can counteract the limitations of their enormous size, making nearly any unsuspecting player who enters the
you're
water
just,
an
like,
easy target. Their
taking
eyes
your
and
boat
noses
out
are
or whatever,
oriented
and you
towards the
see
top
one
of
of
their
these
faces,
just
allowing them
slither
to
into it.
expend
Nah,
minimal
bro,
energy
that's
while
crazy.
camouflaged in
You
aquatic
can't even
vegetation,
like outswim
waiting for
that,
the
bro.
perfect opportunity to carry out an ambush attack. Despite their formidable base stats and proficiency in highly specialized forms of gameplay, the fact that Anacondas are only truly viable in aquatic environments limits their utility and places them squarely in B tier.
Dang.
The most competitive build in the Python faction is the Burmese Python. While many snake builds are competitively viable only on certain maps that suit their specialized abilities, Burmese pythons fit into more of a jack-of-all trades playstyle and have sufficient mobility in aquatic, terrestrial, and arboreal biomes, in spite of their large size.
Come on, man.
Burmese pythons are therefore excellent generalist builds, and as seen with many other generalists, they've been causing serious disruptions in servers that they weren't meant to be spawning in. Burmese pythons have totally destabilized the meta of the Florida Everglades, due mostly to the python's extremely one-sided matchup against non-social mammal builds, and a lack of the type of builds that normally keep the python player base in check. Now, thankfully, the current top tier of the Everglades is quite capable of defeating or repelling a python in single combat, but because the alligator's dominance is restricted to the aquatic zones, pythons essentially have complete control of the arboreal zone, which has led to a drastic reduction in players running mammal builds like the rabbit, raccoon, fox, and bobcat. While Burmese pythons come in at the top of B tier due to their versatility, their low speed stat and lack of venom makes higher tier snakes much more viable choices for most gameplay styles.
Right. Alright, let's see A tier.
While some snake builds in lower tiers
Cobra,
use venom skill, placement in A tier or higher rides almost exclusively on choosing to dump a majority of evolution points into maximizing
I ain't gonna hold you.
And delivery
I'm listen.
Members of the Viper class
I'm not gonna hold
dominate the
you.
A tier. Among the most tier or higher rides almost.
Let me say something. This, I'll probably be able to fight. Here, you know, it's like, alright, bro. Like, you know, it's like, do I really want to fight that? It's like, I can survive. You know what I'm saying? I might be able to survive that because, you know, they're not nothing crazy. You know what I'm saying? I might hurt myself. I might need to go to the doctors, you know, or the hospital. But C tier and O, nigga, I miss me with that. I ain't gonna hold you. You can miss me with that, bro. Miss me with that. Like, this is the king cobra, or is it the king snake or whatever that shit was called? That was like, alright, bro, like, it's not venomous, right? It might be, you know, it might be hard or whatever. That's like the only thing. I forgot what this was. I think this one was like poisonous and shit. Nah, you can't.
Almost exclusively on choosing to dump a majority of evolution points into maximizing venom efficiency and delivery methods. Members of the Viper class dominate the A tier. Among the most feared builds in the game, Vipers have a variety of special offensive and sensory skills that help compensate for their generally low defense stats. Their long, hollow fangs are placed at the front of their mouths and can pierce most armor to deliver lethal doses of venom. But one drawback to the flesh-destroying hemotoxins used by most builds in this group is that they can take a while to immobilize players. Most Viper builds also spec into the infrared heat sensing ability, making them extremely powerful nocturnal ambush attackers and compensating for their lack of speed.
That's kind of OP.
Some members of the Viper faction tack on tail adaptations too, for access to the intimidation and luring abilities. But these perks are minor compared to the raw offensive potential.
That was its tail? I thought
Coming
that was
in
a
at the bottom
bug.
of A tier are Gaboon Vipers, combining the highest defense stat of any venomous build with near unbeatable stealth and an incredibly high strike speed. Despite their bulky appearance, Gaboon Vipers are almost invisible to spot during gameplay, and are notorious for destroying unsuspecting players due to the sheer volume of venom delivered during an attack, despite their relatively underpowered toxicity compared to other Vipers. With the longest fangs of any Viper, they can deal significant physical piercing damage.
Yeah, and people just touching that, bro. Like, I can't do that, bro.
They conserve energy by remaining motionless when not in combat, and are rather difficult to provoke into unnecessary confrontation. While Gaboon Vipers are an excellent choice for ambush-based play in jungle maps, their lack of versatility and low aggression means they can be easily outmaneuvered by other builds. Cottonmouths rank slightly higher in A tier due to their rare ability to use the skill set of the Viper class effectively in the aquatic realm. As the only Viper build in the game with aquatic adaptations, their potent venom and fishhook-shaped fangs make them incredibly effective at farming out fish and frog players for easy XP.
Damn.
This build specs into the caudal luring ability at lower levels, allowing them to quickly become competitive, and shed this ability at higher levels in favor of better camouflage. Cottonmouths are also relatively tanky and escape many combat situations by using intimidation tactics.
Damn.
Their dominance in aquatic maps makes them able to occasionally overcome more competitive generalist builds, but this is limited by biome and therefore not useful during the majority of gameplay.
Rest in peace to rattlesnake.
Rounding out A tier is the rattlesnake. Best suited for desert and forest biomes, these snakes combine a variety of overpowered special abilities with well-allocated base stats. Rattlesnakes are highly capable builds for ambush-based stealth play due to their ability to create thermal maps of other players
King
in
Cobras
low
have to be
situations, which makes them one of the most effective counters for mammal players with the night vision ability. Instead of risking health by grappling with other players, rattlesnakes deliver a lethal amount of venom in one quick strike, and then use their prey tracking ability to find them after they've succumbed to toxic status effects. One major advantage for rattlesnake players is their highly effective rattle intimidation technique, which allows them to scare off more powerful challengers without wasting venom or risking serious damage. While rattlesnakes sit at the top of A tier due to their relatively well-rounded stats among members of the Viper class, all Viper builds are still classified as glass cannons and tend to lose out against opponents with quicker acting venom, superior speed, or high enough HP to tank their attacks. Snake builds placing an S tier overcome the weaknesses of other venom users by maxing out mobility stats and employing a variety of highly effective venom delivery techniques. The most competitively viable snakes spec into heavily neurotoxic venom, granting them the ability to inflict toxic damage and status effects far more quickly than lower tier venom users. While these buffs come at the cost of base defense, S tier snakes are only really weak to the rare few players with venom resistance or effective bite evasion skills. Coming up first, we got the Cobra build. With impressive speed,
they jumping, my
these
boy.
snakes can actively chase down other players rather than having to solely rely on an ambush strategy. Variants of the Cobra build can spec into moderate aquatic and climbing proficiency, allowing for particularly well-rounded gameplay. Their fast-acting venom is mostly neurotoxic, but can have mixed toxic effects that melt through flesh and maximize the amount of pain inflicted.
Melt through flesh.
Even elephant players, the tankiest terrestrial build in the entire game, can be taken down by the ridiculous amount of sheer toxic damage inflicted by a well-placed bite. While all Cobra builds have forward-placed fangs to maximize venom delivery, spitting Cobra players can use the only range attack in the entire snake class by spraying venom up to 2 meters through holes at the front of their fangs. This move has high accuracy and can permanently blind other players when used effectively. Cobra builds advertise their power by using a unique hood modification, intimidating the vast majority of players away from trying to challenge them in the first place. With enough offensive capabilities to take on an entire team of attackers at once, it's no question that Cobras are one of the most competitively viable builds in the snake faction.
Meerkats? Bro, pause. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 7, I think. I think I see another one. Okay, I don't know. They got 7. They're still moving scary. Niggas like, yo, come at me then, nigga. Look at, like, they're all scary.
Next in S tier are sea snakes. With full aquatic adaptations and special underwater sensory skills. These builds can access hard-to-reach areas to demolish even the most competitive fish players. Their fangs are relatively small compared to the closely related Cobra builds, but this works in conjunction with a special attack style. Their venom is some of the deadliest in the game, but causes almost no pain, meaning that other players may not even know they've been hit before fatal toxic damage sets in. While they are effective at using trickster tactics to take down enemies independently, sea snake players can also hunt in teams to capitalize on their own offensive potential and compensate for their low individual HP. This build does have a bit of a high skill floor though, and inexperienced players may struggle at playing around the sea snake's defensive weaknesses. The sea snake build has a unique playstyle that can be hard to master, but with the ability to 1v1 eels and win, this build sits at the top for those who enjoy a challenge.
Black Mamba.
The final build on this tier list is the Black Mamba.
Let's go.
With incredibly overpowered base stats for their class, including ridiculous damage and speed. The Black Mamba is by far the most competitive snake, both in terrestrial and arboreal combat situations. Their speed isn't just with respect to movement. The lethal venom of the Black Mamba takes effect extremely quickly, and can decimate enemies of any size due to the high dose delivery of each bite. Black Mamba venom imposes a variety of neurological status effects, including respiratory failure and vision loss, making them one of the most feared opponents in direct combat.
I said, so what?
Mamba builds have an extremely aggressive and fast-paced playstyle that leaves little room for counterplay, especially considering that their HP and defense stats are among the highest of any venom users due to their large size. While they don't have any unique moves to speak of, Black Mambas dominate by using strategies common among snake players, and do so to an exceptionally effective degree. Topping the charts with the highest DPS potential of any snake,
I have no idea, bro.
Defensive skills to boot.
I actually have no idea.
Black Mamba is the undisputed ruler of snake builds.
Wait, did
Snakes are by no means meta-defining, but it's still worth knowing how they stack up against each other and what their main strengths and weaknesses are. There's a lot more to snakes than just their general combat abilities though, How do snakes deal with cold damage? How can snakes climb trees
Got a
so
quick
easily without
intermission.
claws or cling pads? If you're really interested in knowing
Okay,
all
we'll
the
check
ins
that
and
out.
outs
I'm
of the
recording
snake
a
build,
video right now.
I highly recommend checking out this video sponsor, CuriosityStream. They have this excellent documentary called The Secret Lives of Snakes, which answers a lot of the questions I didn't even know I had about snakes. It goes into way more depth than I have time for here on YouTube. And hey, speaking of videos that don't fit neatly into my YouTube channel, did you know that I have a Nebula series called Let's Play Outside? It's my take on Let's Play style content. I just released a new episode featuring the cheetah as my main, but I also have some old episodes featuring a few dinosaurs, as well as one where I main the mantidfly. CuriosityStream is normally $20 a year, but I do have a special deal just for tiers of
Well,
viewers.
that's enough. Alright, so yeah, I rate it though. Where's the final tier list? Where is it? Where the final? Bro. Okay. Is this it? Hello?
Challenge. The final pass, including terrestrial relief enemies, a variety of
Alright, so
defense stats are
we got some things, right?
And respectable
I
defense
think it was it.
main strengths. And how do snakes deal with cold damage? Knowing all the extreme.
I gotta say that.
Didn't come like
Alright,
all
is he
started.
at the list? At the end?
Sorry it took so long. I promise future videos will come out quick.
Okay, anyways, let me just pull that up right now, actually. Wherever he was talking about it. Alright, so off this list, right? We know the black mamba or whatever is there, right? Y'all think any of the snakes that he said are misplaced or whatever? Yeah, I feel like he didn't do nothing wrong. You know what I mean? Now the pythons and everything, I forgot why he said that they don't deserve. I think it was kind of like they're more susceptible to like getting attacked and shit, and that's why they're not S tier, which makes sense, you know. I thought pythons are crazy. It's accurate. Okay, I bet. I ain't gonna hold you. I thought pythons were gonna be like up top, but it makes sense why they put A tier and everything. I feel like that was what was most surprising for me. Black mamba. Yeah, I guess they just built different. That's why Kobe, you know, that's why his epithet is Black Mamba. You know, just built different. Are you the same beast but a different animal? Or is that what it is? I think that's what he said. But anyways, leave down in the comments down below what y'all thought about the video, what you think should be added to the list if you guys do know of any other snakes, and any other final thoughts. All right. I appreciate you guys watching the video. All right. As always, make sure you guys go like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. I'll leave the video down in the description down below if y'all do want to watch. And also, if you guys do want to just watch Tier Zoo in general, they have a lot of good shit, you know, but we watching it together. So, you know, if y'all, you know, want to go do your homework and watch it, that's cool too, you know. Recommend whatever else you guys want me to react to, all right? I appreciate y'all. I love y'all, all right? And I'm going to see y'all later, all right? Peace out.